So, hello and a very big welcome to the live opening circle for Festival of the Child. I am so excited and thrilled that you're here. I mean, this project has been 6 months in the making and so many wonderful people have contributed to it. And I'm just really so grateful that you're choosing to spend your time here this evening and over the course of the next 7 days. I just wanted to share a handful of things with you this evening. And this evening is going to be set in 3 parts. So as I'm having to keep my eye on the waiting room and add people in, excuse me if I'm a little bit distracted by the screen. So they're in 3 parts. So the first part is really some basic housekeeping and how to get the most out of this summit experience. I'll also be sharing some overviews about the summit itself and what to expect. And the second part, we'll be having an interview with my friend and colleague, Sam Greshoff, who many of you probably will already know, who is an early childhood educator. And the third and final part is a short 20-minute guided meditation. So how does that sound to everybody? If you want to say anything in the chat, you can message us and we'll try and keep an eye on that too. So housekeeping. So really, I just wanted to say that, of course, this is an online format. So, meeting face to face in real life is, of course, there's nothing that's going to quite beat that. But I think the incredible thing about things like Zoom and Skype and all these kind of platforms is that it does give us an opportunity to connect globally. And I just wanted to, make a few suggestions for you to get the maximum benefit from this experience. So the first thing is, number one, is kind of bring your presence. So I don't know about you, but I am a multitasking queen. I have multiple tabs on my computer open at any given time. I have a phone, a computer, a desktop, a laptop, iPads, and I find myself juggling way too much. I actually think that juggling is the curse of the modern age, and sometimes I even have to confess to cooking food for my children whilst running back to my computer and checking stuff on my phone all at the same time. And really, it just means that nothing really gets focused on properly. So my invitation to you is to not be like me. And in fact, really, you've chosen this time to join us on this summit and to just be as present as you possibly can. So whilst you're watching the videos, I'm just really inviting you to switch off your phone, to turn off all the tabs so you're just watching just one thing, and just really give yourself this time. Because of course, the more time you really give yourself to be really present, the more you're going to get out of it. And I think it's a little bit in the line of, it's really about taking time for yourself also. As parents and educators, we're often really super busy, juggling like me. And I think that, it's like they say on the plane, put your oxygen mask on first before you take care of your children. So really in the next 7 days, this is an opportunity for you to practice putting yourself first, because you've decided to show up and you've decided to be here with us for these 7 days. And whether you watch just one video or all 24 or anything in between, I just really want to encourage and invite you to be as present as you're able to. I know that obviously you have busy lives and children to take care of, and obviously you have to be practical with what's available for you. But that's my first invitation, is to be present. My second invitation is something very practical. And this is, about getting a journal, perhaps something beautiful. I have literally hundreds. I have this one for this summit at the moment. And the invitation is to just, as you're listening to the interviews, to write down any questions that arise or any little aha moments. Or, if you don't fancy writing, maybe doodle or draw. I had a business coach many, many years ago, and the three most important words he said to me, which were the most important words he thought he'd ever heard from anyone ever, was write it down. And you know how it is when you're watching something. Sometimes you watch something and then, you know, you have this great revelation, and then 5 minutes later you think, well, what was that actually? I can't even exactly remember. And somehow just writing it down means that you can come back to your notes later, or perhaps share in the Facebook group if you've joined there, or on the comments page on the website, and just, you know, engage with the material more deeply. So that brings me to the third thing, which is about participation. Now, you have taken the time to be here, and I'm so grateful and so excited that you're here. And I just want to invite you to really show up in the Facebook group if you're part of Facebook, or even just by email, reach out to me personally and share where you're at. It's entirely possible you might listen to things and think, wow, yeah, I really completely agree with that. Or actually, I don't agree with that at all. Or this makes me think about when this happened to me or when that happened to me. And I really want to encourage you to be bold and to share and to participate. And the other thing is that you might think, you know, something you have to say is, you know, maybe you might think, you might have some judgments around it, and you might think, you know, it's not so interesting, or should I even write that? But actually, you know, often when people write things, they're speaking for everybody. So really, by being kind of courageous and bold and willing to share your thoughts, you're also, you know, offering a service to the community and helping people to, you know, for people for whom that is more difficult. One of my personal kind of motivations for creating this summit is to build community. I've been looking for community my whole life. And, you know, I lived in a community in Oroville for 6.5 years some while ago. And more recently, I've been part of Steiner Waldorf communities in the UK. And, you know, I really, my late father, he always used to kind of grin at me, and he said that, you know, he thought it was funny. He had this thing that I was always looking for. He said, like-minded souls, and he would grin because he thought that was very funny. And, you know, he thought it was kind of funny because I was looking outside of myself. And I think that we all have a deep desire to belong and to fit in. And in a way, he was right, because I was looking for that validation and connection outside of myself. And as I've turned my attention inwards to myself, I've discovered that belonging is an inside job. So from this place of connection in myself, I realized that instead of looking for community outside of myself, I'm going to be that community for myself. And from this place, this summit, an event, has kind of emerged. I hope that makes sense. What I'm really trying to say is that reach out if you need to. Use this space because it's really here for you. And for the next 7 days, I'm absolutely available for any questions, emails, comments in the Facebook group or on the website. You know, there are so many different ways you can get in touch. And I just really want to encourage and invite you to participate fully. So I think that's what I wanted to say about housekeeping. So just to summarize, it's bring your presence, be practical, and participate. How does that sound? If anybody has anything they want to share, feel free to write in the chat. Okay. Okay, so no comments. Nothing anyone needs to ask? Fine. Sounds great. Brilliant. Sounds good. Fantastic. Okay, so just to move on, what was the next thing I wanted to say? Okay, so I wanted to share a little bit about the summit now. So, of course, as you know by now, Festival of the Child is a series of 24 interviews with experts from around the globe, with lots to share about how you can raise your children and support them to thrive. I know from, you know, more than 100 of you have written to me in emails, and you've shared things like you want your children to have the courage to hear their inner voice, or, you know, you want them to bring healing to suffering world to understand and love themselves, to feel supported and empowered to be themselves, to follow their dreams, to create an impact in the world, to be seen and heard and respected as human beings, to direct their lives towards their purpose. And so many thoughts and wishes for your children that are, exactly what we would wish for ourselves. So, like you, I also have a deep longing to participate fully, not just in this summit, but also in my life. And I really feel that, part of why we're here is to experience what it means to be fully human. So obviously what that's going to mean to each of us is different, but this week together is an opportunity for us to really participate and support each other. I know that having gone through this process of creating and hosting and producing this summit, I've also gone through my own sort of rites of passage, if you like. It's been an amazing experience, and in some ways it's consolidated 20 years of my parenting journey. There have been things I've listened to and I've gone, wow, oh yeah, absolutely, that completely makes sense. And then sometimes things I've listened to and I thought, oh my God, I wish I did more of that and I should be doing this. And I've had a moment where I've kind of beaten myself with the, guilty mother stick and kind of gone, oh, I'm not good enough, or felt, insecure. And then actually have also just realized that that's just, those things have been living on my inside. And really this summit is an opportunity to really bring our inner content into the outer space. So, as these things have arisen for me throughout this process, I've kind of gone, oh, okay, that's interesting. There's me having a moment thinking, in one of the interviews with Nancy Mellon, I think it was, a storyteller, she was sharing about how wonderful it is to share stories with children. And I was thinking, well, I don't share stories much with my children anymore. They're teenagers and, they're busy in their own rooms. And I was kind of feeling bad about it. And it really made me kind of feel, a little bit insecure for a moment. And then, curiously, my two teenagers, a 17-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter, who were both spend a huge amount of time in their rooms, that evening just suddenly came down, sat on the sofa, and we had the most incredible time just laughing and giggling and sharing just life stories with each other. And for me, I know it was connected, and it was just really having a moment of bringing awareness to these parts in me that were coming up. So I think what I'm trying to say from that is just be aware and notice, what arises from you, for you. And, if you're willing to share or you want to reach out for support, please do that. For me, this whole process has been a really powerful, transformative and healing journey. And I really wish that for you too. And, maybe some of you are new parents with small ones to care for. A lot of you have, I think probably 50% of you have said that you have children under 7. And of course, being a parent or, a teacher of small ones, it takes up a lot of, they take up a lot of time and energy. Or whether you're a seasoned parent with older children, who take up less time but still a lot of energy. We all need support, inspiration and community. And, I just really am encouraging you to reach out. One of the reasons that we've created this summit is because, I really personally feel that education or childhood itself is in crisis. Children these days, we can't expect a job for life. I know, we have portfolio careers, but of course there is a level of instability in that. And the world our children are inhabiting is so hugely different than the one certainly I was growing up in. And, there are so many things, like if you think about young children who are forced to start formal learning at earlier ages, even though all the research suggests that, it's much better to start formal learning when children have engaged with the world through their limbs and have, developed the right social and emotional skills. And there's so many things that are happening in education today. I mean, I'm speaking about what's going on in the UK, but I'm sure the same is happening in, the US and Australia, and please tell me in the chat if you know what's going on in your own country. But basically, children are spending way less time outdoors than ever before. They're given less opportunities to play freely, and you know, technological advancement, as you know, I've shared in lots of the sort of website material, is fantastic and great, because of course it means we can have these sorts of meetings and connect with each other. But of course, what does that mean for our children? You know, our children are growing up in an age where they didn't, you know, I remember life before internet. Some of you might remember that life too. But that's certainly not the time we're living in now. And so children today, you know, we have to deal with screens and, you know, their addictive natures. They spend less time climbing trees and scrambling around in the mud. And we've got early childhood educators like Dr. Sebastian Sugate and Sally Jenkinson, both of whom have decades of research and experience behind them as educators and authors and advisors. And Pam Jarvis, Dr. Pam Jarvis also, she's a fantastic resource diving deeper into the science behind what's happening in a young person's brain. And Vince Gaumon also, he speaks about, you know, the importance of adults remembering to play. So, you know, there are some really fantastic conversations coming up, and I really, I'm so excited to be sharing them with you. I really feel that all our children are asking to be seen and heard and felt, and for their unique qualities to be celebrated. And I just hope that it's through these sorts of conversations that we can identify what the real developmental needs of children are. Because it seems to me that our children are becoming, you know, more traumatized by what's living in their environments. And childhood and the world itself feels in a kind of crisis. The paradigm of the old is crumbling. You know, there's more war and violence and abuse and trauma, or perhaps because of things like the internet and social media, we're just more aware of, you know, all these things that are just simply not sustainable. I thought it was really interesting recently that in the UK there's this group called Extinction Rebellion, and they've been protesting up and down the country about the climate emergency. And in the news and on the radio, the biggest concern that was reported by the journalists was that they were disrupting people's right to earn a living and impacting retailers and businesses in the economy. And I kind of thought, wow, it's like money has become the new god. And never mind about the climate, we're more worried about people not being able to earn money. And I think that, you know, we're kind of in an extreme place on the planet, and it's just simply not sustainable. But I also think that, you know, social media, obviously we get an unprecedented level of access to what's going on in the world. We see, you know, horrific and terrible, ugly, dark, devastating things in real time. But I also think that we're at an incredible time of opportunity, because, you know, we can now see what has been, you know, perhaps hidden for the longest time. And I think that the opportunity to see all these things is really an opportunity to rewrite a different story, or to tell a different story. And on that theme of storytelling and the healing power of storytelling, we have some fantastic speakers, Nancy Mellon, Susan Perot, and Kim Alsop, all who have a great deal to share on these topics. So I guess, you know, some of my questions are, how can we raise our children so that despite the difficulties and the darkness of the world, we can also inspire them and, you know, help them to see the truth, beauty and goodness of life too. And, you know, it's certainly there if you look. I know also, you know, some of us perhaps come from backgrounds of trauma, and trauma survivor and psychologist Dr. Gretchen Schmelzer, whose interview you may have seen today, which was released today, picks up this topic in her interview too, The Courage of Parenting with a History of Trauma, which is also a really great interview. So what else did I want to say? That I think really that this question of well-being and restoring well-being is also a question of awakening. And how can we raise our children so that they can feel deeply connected to their hearts and not disassociated from their inner life of feeling or the feeling life of the world? So for me, this means, getting to know each other and connect, and, listening to our differences, and forging connections across cultures. And we're living in a multicultural, multinational, multifaceted, multidimensional world. And I'm interested in how can we forge connections of our fundamental human unity. The very well-known Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh says that we're all connected. Every leaf, every flower, every rock or stone, every animal, every human being. And he calls this interbeing. But, a question I have is, well, what does this look like when raising our children? During this summit, we also have the opportunity to listen to Zen master Dharmacharya Shantam Seth, who was ordained by Thich Nhat Hanh as a Zen master, and he's going to be talking about mindfulness in the child. On the topic of inner work, we're going to be speaking with Lisa Romero, who, every encounter with her is always wonderful. She's offering us lots of food for thought on how inner work fosters resilience in our children, and also supporting children in a therapeutic capacity is discussed in Karin Finzer's interview about the healing power of colour. So that brings me to, what else did I want to share? So the role of the teacher today, where does parenting fit in? I mean, I know this is a summit for parents and educators, and as whether you're a parent or an educator, all parents are also educators. I mean, parents are a child's first teacher, and so some questions that might arise are around what is the role of the teacher in today's society, and what sort of changes need to take place in schools. Fran Russell has some great insights on how to choose the right school for your child. A lot of children, our children do spend a lot of time at school, but the majority of time they spend is at home. So how can we reach parents, and how, as a parent, how do we engage with what's really going on? We've got some fantastic parenting experts like Lou Harvey-Zahra, Una Alexander and Laura Newman, all exploring deep connection tools and simple tips that can have maximum impact. And also Tamara Dunn will be sharing a wonderful mini tapping session. So just kind of touching again on the question of technology, obviously we're able to connect here in this fantastic way. And there is a synchronization, I feel, that's happening around the globe on a collective scale through technology. But what does this mean for children? I think this is one of these big questions of our age. And what is an appropriate use of digital media in relation to our children? Dr. Michaela Glockler, who's a wonderful woman and pediatrician, has some truly insightful reflections in her interview and lots of expertise to share with you. We've also got some authors and speakers, Michelle Mitchell and Kim McCabe, who have some advice to share on sexuality and social media and other hot topics for teenagers, particularly with a focus on teenage girls and teenagers and how to support teenagers is picked up in an interview with Julian Payne, a secondary level teacher, and the importance of the arts as part of adolescent development and a mirror for what's going on for them too. So obviously, there are bigger questions like how do we deal with child poverty and climate change? And obviously through this course of this summit, we're really looking at developing creative thinking, fostering resilience and restoring well-being. And, these issues of child poverty and climate change are obviously difficult questions. And, obviously in the instance of climate change has the potential to wipe out life as we know it. But addressing the bigger issues of education, we've got Dr. Torin Finzer and Christopher Clowder sharing their expertise on on how we can innovate towards the future. Some of you may already have watched Christopher's interview, which was shared this morning. We also have the wonderful futurist and cosmologist and healer, Dr. Jude Caravan, speaking about our place in the universe. So I think that might be almost all that I wanted to say on that. What else was I want to say? So really, I mean, I think we've got a pretty fantastic lineup, quite honestly. What a lineup. Yes, Anne, absolutely. And I really hope that, you know, it will just offer you food for thought and inspiration and nourishment. My deepest, strongest feeling is that we need to collaborate and connect and communicate and, you know, develop empathy for one another as adults and educators, because these bonds of connection are how we're going to mirror and model connection and empathy for our children also. I read this great article that said the opposite of loneliness was connection. And it really struck a chord with me, and it made me think, well, how do we connect as human beings? And how do we inspire and encourage our children to connect and awaken to their true potential and thrive? I know that you are here because you passionately care about your children's well-being and that they have a better childhood and a better future. And oh, I'm not sure what's happening. I think I'm viewing somebody else's screen. Let me just stop that. Okay, it's fine. So where was I? Yeah, so okay, so here we are, basically. So I'm just really thrilled and excited to be here with you all. It's quite curious being here in a live context, particularly because at the moment it's like I'm just talking to myself. I know that you're all here and I'm very grateful that you are, but of course I can't hear you. So it's a curious experience. I just want to say that I'm really, really so grateful that you've all decided to show up. I know that time is perhaps the most precious commodity we have these days, and you are choosing to spend your evening with us and, you know, time over the course of the next 7 days. I know what I wanted to say. That, you know, really also throughout this summit, we're also talking about how can we cultivate shared human values beyond the kind of cultural, political and economic differences. We also have a wonderful interview with Mr. G, where he shares about his path as a poet and how viewing the world metaphorically can help you access new solutions for old problems. So really, I think that's pretty much it. Last week, I had the great pleasure of being in Brussels for a conference, which made me feel quite important and was fun to get away for a couple of days. And in the conference, which was called The Art of Education, it was hosted by the European Council for Stein Award of Education, and there were 200 people in the room, all really, you know, have worked for many decades for the good of children. And in one of the keynote talks by Florian Oswald, who's the joint pedagogical head of the joint head of the pedagogical section at the Goetheanum in Dornach, Switzerland. He basically, you know, said that, I'm paraphrasing what he said, he didn't actually say this, but he said something about, you know, how do we become fully human? And, you know, perhaps a way of being fully human is to participate absolutely in life with our whole hearts, you know, 110%. And so this offering really is, from my heart to yours, my 110% participation. What he actually said, and he did say these words, he said, sing, dance your life and help other people. And I thought that's probably a good place to pause. So if anyone has anything that they want to share or express in response to anything I've shared, feel free to post in the chat. I'd love to hear from you if there are any particular topics you're super excited about, if you have any questions. It would just be great to hear from you. Okay, so what a lineup, and excited. Yes, great. So I think that's probably way more than enough from me. So I think I'd like to move to part two now. And part two is going to be an interview with Sam Greshoff. So I think if anybody has anything else to say, nope. So I'm going to, let me just see how I can, I'm just seeing how I can, Sam, make you spotlight video. Maybe that works. Aha. Do you think that works? So let's see. Okay, I think that's working. So I just want to introduce you to Sam. Some of you, I'm sure, already know Sam. So Sam is a trained Steiner Waldorf kindergarten teacher, and she has worked with young children and their parents for more than 20 years in both kindergartens and toddler groups. She's been involved in teacher training and continuing professional development, as well as running workshops for parents. She's currently working for the Steiner Waldorf Schools Fellowship, and in 2014 she completed the first Pickler training course, which took place in the UK. This has had a great influence on her work, and she continually strives to bring the Steiner Waldorf and Pickler approaches to parents to enable them to gain a deeper understanding of their child's development. Sam, I'm so excited that you're here. And it's great not just to be talking myself.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure and a privilege to be part of such an amazing festival. And I mean, well done, Priya, for putting all of this together and for working so hard for months and months and months to bring it to everyone. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. So I just thought, maybe we could start at the beginning. You've been an early childhood educator for 20 years. And I just wondered if, what are some of the significant changes that you've seen over the last 2 decades?
Well, I mean, the main change, the biggest change is in the UK. I'm not talking necessarily about other parts of the world, is in the working patterns within families. So I think when I had my children 20 plus years ago, some others went back to work full time, some worked part time, quite a few were at home full time. And I think we've seen that change quite a lot over the last 20 years. So the vast majority of mothers now would be expecting to go back to work, many of them full time, but certainly part time. Very few are at home full time now. And one of the things I think that's really wonderful that we've seen is that both parents are much more involved with childcare often. So we have fathers taking paternity leave or choosing to work part-time or at home some days, so that they're both able to be involved and really participate in their children's childhood much more, I think, than even 25 years ago in the UK. But along with that, what we're of course also seeing is that most children are spending part of the week, at least, if not all the week, in childcare that's taking place outside of their homes. Extended families, of course, are still involved in caring for them, as they always have been. But yeah, we're seeing much more daycare happening around the country, and children spending at least part of their week in daycare. So I think that's a really big change that's taken place in the UK. And I'm not saying that's a negative change. It's just a change in family life, and it has brought about it a whole range of different initiatives and changes, and consequences, good and bad. That's the first thing. I think the next thing, which is linked to this, is that children are spending less time outdoors. They're just not having that same opportunity for playing outdoors that they would have had in the past. Part of that is because people's lives are so busy. And it's hard to make that time to, maybe spend time in the park or the woods with your children if you're rushing between work and home, etc. And also, although many nurseries will make time to spend to ensure that children get to go outdoors, it's not always possible, or not possible for much of the day. So I think we're seeing that. We're seeing children having less of a connection to nature, less of an opportunity to play outside. And that, again, has a lot of different impacts on them. We're certainly seeing children whose movement is affected by that. We have children come to kindergarten at 4, and you can see that they're not moving in as confident a way as they maybe would have done in the past, or as some of the other children are. You see children who are not that confident in their movement, and it's probably because they're not having enough opportunity to really move and explore and play. They're spending a lot of time in the car, or a lot of time, being quite sedentary. And the other thing, of course, which again is connected to all of this, is that the use of technology, both our use, as you have said, Priya, and also children's use of technology. When my children were small, my children are 19 and 22. When they were very young, there was a lot being talked about television viewing, etc. But touchscreen technology didn't exist, and that had a really big impact on children's access to technology. And that, again, if you're spending a lot of time sedentary and using a screen, watching television, playing with phones, etc., that impacts on their time to play and time to be outdoors. So I think those are the 3 really major changes, and they are interconnected, and they have had an impact on children's lives and family lives that we can see in lots of different ways.
Thank you. It's funny, I was just thinking, obviously small children imitate adults, and in fact, as you said, even our use of technology, I mean, obviously, like, I'm aware of some of the negative impacts of technology and screens for small children, but when my children were small, I was on my phone a lot, actually. And when I picked my children up from kindergarten, they had made little cardboard phones. So of course that was their whole sort of, copying their mother, just being on her phone the whole time. It was quite interesting that, even though they didn't have access to screens, there was still that imitation going on that was,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we talk about technology, all of us as responsible adults have to look first at our own use of it, rather than, criticizing parents or even being critical about children's use of technology. I think we first have to start with ourselves. How are we using it? Are we as individuals responsible in our use of it? Are we completely addicted to our phones and unable to leave them and do something else and really focus on something or someone? Or are we just totally addicted to looking at them every 5 minutes? And I think it's not kind of criticizing the other. It's looking to ourselves. That's reflecting on our own behavior first.
Thank you. I know, before we had spoken, a couple of days ago, and you'd mentioned about the 1,000 days, and, there's this kind of movement generally for us to get the first 1,000 days right. And I know that the UN have defined early childhood as up to 8 years of age. Can you just share what you think early childhood, what's the age group of that actually?
Actually, I would agree with the UN that we should go up to 8 years. And I think it's really important when we're thinking about childhood this is happening more and more, that formal education is being brought to younger and younger children. And actually, it would be really good if we could look at that the other way and think, what do children need? How can we ensure that the environment that the child's in is providing what they need? And how to ensure that when they go into more formal school, it's meeting them where they are, rather than expecting the child to be school ready. Why can't the school be child ready? And so I think it's actually quite helpful to think of early childhood as going up to the age of 8, or certainly 7, but between 7 and 8. And I think most early childhood practitioners, regardless of what approach they're working with, most of the ones that I have met would agree with that. In terms of the first 1,000 days, obviously why that's important is to do with the child's development, particularly the development of their brain in that time. So that's why there's a lot of interest and concern about this, is making sure that children, and the first 1,000 days starts from conception, so it's from conception to 2 years. So there's a lot of concern around the world about maternal nutrition and making sure that children get a really good start, but also that their mothers are well supported and that their parents are well supported at the very beginning of their lives. And I think it is something that's very, very powerful and very important, and we all need to be aware of. But it can also be used as a sort of a way of criticising parents and saying, these first 1,000 days are really important. So if you get it wrong, you're really damaging your child's life chances. And I think that's really unhelpful, personally. I think to have a deeper understanding of the development of a young child should be really empowering for parents, and actually really dispel a lot of fear, not create more fear. As you said in your introduction, Priya, at the moment the world can feel a very dark place, and it can, if you have a very young child that's in your care, whether as a parent or as a teacher, it can feel very difficult to feel hopeful about the future. But I think we have to try for the children in our care. They really need us to be hopeful about the future.
I was just thinking, what do you think are like the 3 most important things that parents and teachers, need to be aware of when raising young children today?
The 3 most important things. I think the first one relates back to one of the points I made earlier, which is connecting to nature. If we're concerned about the planet and we're concerned about climate change and all of the issues that the planet's facing, we all have to connect to nature, but children really need that. So they really need time outside. They really need that opportunity to play and to observe and to have, not just to be busy outdoors. Obviously children like to be busy, but I think they also need space and time and peace to just observe for themselves. Some of the most wonderful times I've had as a early childhood practitioner has been observing children in the garden, and often they will do things like just sit and look at a crocus flower or a daffodil or watch ants, and having that time and that space not constantly filled up with activity, so that they really truly can connect to the world around them, I think is really important. Also allowing them lots of opportunity for movement. As I said earlier, we are seeing that many children now, their movements are not as confident and fluid as they maybe would have been in the past, because they're spending a lot more time sitting down. Giving them lots of opportunity for movement, both indoors and outdoors, and slowing down, not rushing all the time. Our lives are busy, and I'm not saying this in a way to make anyone feel guilty about that. That's just the nature of how it is in this world today. But to be conscious about that, so to purposely slow down and take time and allow children that time. I think those are the most important things.
Thank you so much.
I was listening to Christopher's talk actually this morning, and it was so interesting. So profound, so much of what he had to say. But one of the things I thought was really helpful was about the fact that teachers and parents were all educators. So these important aspects of childhood that we need to be aware of, and these opportunities to really support young children and to support their development, are just as important for us educators as they are for parents. We need to remember to slow down too. We need to ensure that children have the time and space to connect to nature, to find out who they are for themselves, and to respect children as competent human beings. Christopher, again, he used this lovely phrase about the child as the co-creator in the world. And I think we really need to respect children's competence. Whether we're their teacher or whether their parent, and most of us who are teachers are parents too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I was just thinking, it's that famous question: if you could wave a magic wand and could change anything, if time and money were no object, what would you do with your magic wand, and why?
Change things, or
what would you do? Things? It could be anything.
I'd make sure that there was really widely available in the UK. I'm talking about widely available, affordable, really good quality daycare for young children, where they had the opportunity to play, to socialise, to be outside. Yes, that's the one thing that I think, because parents need to work. We can't say, there was a time in the past when mothers were at home and that was a good thing. This isn't the world we live in now. And most women now, most of us want to work. We want to have that fulfillment in our lives of having a working life as well as being parents. And so I think there therefore needs to be care available that's appropriate for young children and easily available. And I think that isn't where we are at the moment in the UK.
No.
Or indeed in much of the rest of the world.
No, absolutely. And I was just thinking, if there was one thing, I'm just, lots of people are listening today, and obviously we're going to share the recording with everybody who's registered today. If there was one thing you could say to everybody listening that you might suggest to have the maximum impact on the well-being of their child, whether it's their own child or the children in their care, in a early childhood setting or, a school setting, what do you think that would be? What would you suggest that they could do, or what one thing?
I've touched on it actually. I think it's slowing down, doing less.
Right, yes.
Actually, not doing more, doing less. I mean, one of the things that I read relatively recently was some statistics on children being read stories. So in 2013, this was a bit of research again in the UK. In 2013, 69% of children were read a story each day of the children's survey, in a survey. And I think it was about 1,500 families that were surveyed. And in 2017, that had gone down to 51%.
Wow.
Which is quite a dramatic change in a short space of time. And I think, again, that's because our lives are getting busier and busier. But if we can just, even just for part of the day, think, at this point in the day, I'm just going to make everything much slower. For example, giving yourself a bit more time in the morning, so it's not such a rush the morning, so that you can just take a bit longer over breakfast. And I know as the mother of children, how hard that is. Family life is busy, and we're always rushing to get out of the door and find everything that's needed. And but if you can just get up a bit earlier, allow that bit more time so that everything doesn't feel rushed, and you can focus on the bit of the day that matters most to you or your family, or in your setting with children. What bit of the day are we most rushed, and where it's not working so well? Can we slow that down? Can we change that so that rather than bringing in kind of quality time. I remember when my children were small, people used to talk about that, ensuring you have quality time with your child.
Yes.
Well, I think just slowing down can do that without you having to bring anything extra in.
I think that's really practical, isn't it? Because it's very accessible. Anybody could find a moment where they could slow down and, implement that like straight away.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think the future looks like for early childhood? And it's a big question.
The future for early childhood, well, it's, again, Christopher touched on this morning. Around the world, the focus now, and wherever you look at the research around the world, I was reading something about education in Chile the other day, and it's exactly the same as the UK. The focus is on those STEM subjects. The focus is on formal education, and it's getting earlier and earlier. So that, I think, is a very worrying trend. And I think it's something that parents, practitioners, all of us educators of young children need to be campaigning about. Our voice needs to be heard. This is not right for young children. And very, very few early childhood practitioners, if any, would say that that's a good idea. They almost all across the board say actually what's needed is a time for children to play, to get to know themselves, to get to know other children, to socialize, to develop their language skills, to develop their social and emotional skills and their physical skills, their physical abilities. And if you bring formal learning to a younger age, then they don't have those opportunities to do that, to really develop in the way they need to. And I think we need to be campaigning about that. We need those policy makers around the world to hear the voice of parents and teachers, early childhood practitioners, and say, this enough is enough. This is not right for our children, for any children anywhere. Having said that, it's also really, there's lots of really exciting things going on as well, and really exciting conversations. And as I say, the kind of developing understanding about child development, about the development of a child's brain and how movement is so important for that development. That's just, there's more and more research that's enabling us to understand this. And that's really empowering. It's really empowering for all of us who work with young children or who look after young children in any way. So I think there are really positive things as well. We mustn't forget that. But I think we need to be, all of us who care about young children and their lives, we need to be advocates for them. We need to be joining together, joining forces and campaigning about that.
Is there anything else that you think we need to know at this time?
Again, I think going back to something Christopher said, which is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it was really interesting that he brought this as well, is joy. I think this fear that surrounds us a lot of the time, and I think a lot about the parents of babies and very young children and what it must be like to be bringing a young baby into the world at the moment. With every time that you watch the news or you look at anything on the internet, there's not only about the wars and the kind of chaos around the world, the chaos politically in many of our countries, but also about the plastic in the sea and all of these things that there's so much to be worried about. And I think, what must it be like to be bringing this, young child into the world and facing what we're facing? And not knowing, we've never known what the future will be for our children, but it feels even more uncertain at the moment, possibly, than it ever has before.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to combat that fear with joy. We need to bring joy into our own lives and into our children's lives. We need to, our children are full of joy, and we need to celebrate that, and we need to allow for that. And sometimes that is about slowing down, focusing on simple things, just to allow oneself to have that time. And I try, when I'm working with the young children that I'm with, and yesterday I was running a baby group, and it's it's impossible not to be full of joy when you watch those babies and how excited they are. One of them was just starting to roll over, and he was so excited yesterday. It's impossible not to feel that joy, but it's really important to keep that, to hold that, and for that to be very authentic in us, to find that in ourselves, and to remember that.
I think you've shared so much with us. Thank you so much. I mean, I love what you've shared about joy. It's really important to remember, isn't it? It's easy to, like worry about all the things that are going wrong or don't work or don't make sense. And actually, I think that's, also what you said about slowing down. I think that's so practical. As always, it's always good to speak with you. You're full of so much good sense and a really practical approach. And I really appreciate your taking the time to be with us today. Thank you so much.
No, not at all. Thank you for inviting me, Priya. It's when I look at your speakers, I feel extremely privileged to have been able to be part of this, a tiny part of this. So thank you. And I'm very, very much looking forward to hearing the interviews, which are so fascinating and so full of so much wisdom that we've all got so much to learn. So it's very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So there are lots of comments in the chat, lots of thank yous, lots and lots of thank yous actually. Gianni says, great messages, Sam. I worry about the effect our fear has on children. Being joyful with children is essential in being present for them. Thank you. Lots more thank yous. Wonderful. So that sort of brings us to to a sort of close of part 2. And I'll just cancel this spotlight. Thank you, Sam. I'm going to just change the... let's see how we do that. Not sure how I do. Okay. I need a tech assistant. Yeah, so the final part of this evening is I just wanted to share a meditation with you. And I was thinking about this. As a meditating soul myself, I wanted to share it with you because it's just something that I feel is really just a different way of connecting. And before I share the meditation with you, I just wanted to tell you a little thing. That I shared an article on the Imagine a Schoolware Facebook page. And basically there was a research team at the University College University. It's called UCL, University College London University, in London. And they basically monitored the heart rates and electrodermal activity of 12 audience members whilst they were watching a production of the West End musical Dreamgirls. And it was found, and I'm just going to quote directly from the research piece, that alongside their individual emotional responses, the audience members' hearts were also responding in unison with their pulses speeding up and slowing down at the same rate. So the Dr. Devlin, who was the research lead, this is a direct quote from him. He said, usually a group of individuals will each have their own heart rates and rhythms with little relationship to each other. But romantic couples or highly effective teammates will actually synchronize their hearts so that they beat in time with each other, which is in itself astonishing. So the fact that 12 people in an audience came into resonance with each other through the kind of emotional shared experience of watching something, I just think is, science is kind of catching up with something we might anecdotally or intuitively have felt, that we are all deeply connected and affected by each other. So I want to share this meditation with you because I really feel that, coming together as a group, I mean, I know that we're all going to be watching the videos in our own, maybe on our phones or tablets or computers or in our own little universes. But I really want you to know that we are all in this together, this being human, being alive, and particularly over the course of this summit experience. And a way that I think that we can connect is through meditation. And I think that the possibilities are endless for coming together in these kind of virtual spaces. And I just really feel that there's, possibility for us to come into a deep harmonic resonance at a heart level. And that's really what I want to share with you. So that's just a bit of a preamble. Now I've finished the preamble, I'm going to switch my screen if I can do that. So just give me 1 second. Okay. So that is there. So I think if I'm managing to do this text stuff properly, I've just lost the toolbar. I'm being too clever for my own good. So I want to share my screen with you, and I'm just trying to see how can I do that. Share screen. Here we are. Okay, so that's that one. So hopefully you now have a picture of a lotus flower and a feather and some candles and some stones. Okay, great. So I'm just really, I want to share this meditation with you. And of course, you're welcome to engage with it in whatever way feels appropriate for you. I just wanted to say that, if you want to close your eyes, you're welcome. If you want to keep your eyes open, you're also welcome. But if you do keep your eyes open, I just want to invite you to close your eyes and allow them to rest with a soft focus. So we're going to be here for about 15, 20 minutes. And it's just a different way of exploring, connecting, and having an experience for yourselves. So I'm just going to invite you now to close your eyes or allow them to rest with a soft focus. And slowly you might begin to take in a few bigger breaths. And just allow the breath to fill you up from the inside out. You can allow the breath to flow into your belly. Just feeling this moment as it is. There's actually nothing you need to do. We are actually slowing down, as Sam had just suggested. There's nowhere you need to go. Just being here now. Just feeling everything that is present. Maybe you can just hear the sound of my voice. Wherever you are, perhaps there are some distractions around you. Just let them be. For some of you, it's the beginning of your day. And for others, the end or somewhere in between. Just allow your thoughts and feelings of today just to be. This is time for you to be here. And just feel the weight of your body underneath you. And just allow yourself to just effortlessly open a little bit more as you breathe the breath flowing into your body. Breathing in nourishment as you tend to your body. And as you breathe out, just allow any tensions, worries, or concerns to just leave your body. And just keep breathing. And just notice, maybe some of your body feels hot or cold. Be aware of any sensations in your body. With every breath, we just invite you to drop deeper into your own body. Just bringing your awareness now to the inside. And maybe you're feeling relaxed or tense, something in between. There's nothing you have to do, just notice. Just remembering to breathe. And as you're breathing now, just be aware of any thoughts. Maybe there are thoughts repeating themselves, or thoughts from the day you've already had, or the day you've still to encounter. You don't need to do anything with these thoughts, just be aware of them. Maybe these thoughts are familiar, thoughts you've had before. Maybe they're new. Just noticing everything. And just being aware of how you're feeling in this moment. You've been listening for the last hour, just seeing what resonates with you. You don't have to do anything. Just notice how you're feeling. Just notice what is the state of your natural vitality in this moment. You might like to think of a gas flame. From 1 to 10, a small little 1 is a glowing ember, or a 10 is a fierce flame, shining bright. Just be aware of how you're feeling in relation to yourself. You may be a mother, a father, a teacher, a husband or a wife, a son or a daughter. Maybe your children are small and take up a great deal of your time and energy. Or perhaps they're older and take less of your time, but still your energy and attention. Just be aware of the spaces inside of you that your children inhabit. And I'd just like to invite you to take a moment to feel what it's like for you as a parent or educator, to be aware that you are also somebody's child. You come from a long history of ancestors. It doesn't matter in this moment what type of relationship you've had with your own parents. Maybe it was easy and loving and supportive, or maybe it was full of challenges. The invitation is just to breathe and be aware that you come from a long line of parents and parents before them. And your ancestors that stand behind you go far back beyond where you can see. Just like your children who stand in front of you. Maybe some of you have grandchildren, and you can simply imagine the generations that have yet to come. Some of you may know those small Russian doll figurines. The ones that you open in half, and there's a smaller figurine inside, and then another, and another. Our children are contained within us, just like we are contained in our forefathers and our ancestors before us. Those ancestors have also gone through their fair share of struggles and challenges. They've experienced great joys and successes, times of difficulty. Ancestors that had wishes and dreams and hopes for you, their children and descendants. Just like you have hopes and dreams for the children and generations in front of you. And just remembering to breathe. There's nothing you need to do. We're all here together now. And no matter where in the world you are right now, and whatever culture you're a part of, whatever your religious beliefs and views, just be aware that you are sitting now in a sacred circle with many more sons and daughters. There are many mothers and fathers gathered here, men and women just like you, all coming from diverse backgrounds and cultures, with different religions and traditions, but each one coming from a long line of ancestors, full of hopes and dreams for the future that is you. You are the sum total of the hopes and dreams of all those that have gone before you. As you bring your hopes and dreams into this space now, just allowing yourself to be here fully. And as you take in your next breath in, just allow yourself to imagine, feel, or think about the resonance of the group gathered today. Whether they are gathered literally on this live stream or listening on the recording, in this space we are all connected. Connecting to all the people listening live and all the people who will listen to this meditation. All the people who've chosen to come here at this time. We are learning together, both individually and as a group, just by being here. There is something that has brought you here, whether it's a particular speaker or a topic, maybe a friend or a colleague. You have decided to come. Just allow yourself to feel connected to why you've decided to join us at this time. This impulse or feeling that has pulled you into resonance with this group, this very special group that has chosen to come together in this moment. There are many people gathered here all around the world. Mothers, fathers, sons and daughters of life itself. All feeling called to join and gather and explore what does it mean to raise the next generation with consciousness. What does it mean to come together with other like-minded individuals just like you, all seeking more clarity, more connection, more depth and understanding about their own child, seeking ways in which your children can grow up to be happy, healthy, and full of hope for the future. Mothers and fathers just like you, holding this longing that the next generation will develop the human capacities that will enable them to be happy and whole. As parents and educators, we want our children to grow up in freedom and to have better lives than the ones perhaps we had growing up. Be aware that you are taking your place in this circle. A circle of mothers and fathers and teachers and educators who want their children, just like your children, to live a peaceful, rewarding life, full of treasured childhood memories and experiences. Maybe you can feel the resonance of this field building as other parents and educators connect also to their longing for their children to feel happy and fulfilled in their lives. Dreaming of that future where our children live lives of purpose and meaning. Imagining our children growing up to be resilient, with courage in their hearts, and the ability to think on their feet. Imagine now your children awakening to their true potential, being who they are meant to be, feeling balanced in their mental, physical, and spiritual health, feeling secure and loved, connected to their own inner wisdom and power. And as you feel into this moment now, you may also be aware of the challenges that you may be facing in your own life and world. It is good to connect to our longings. And yet for some of us, there is a sense of loneliness and disconnection that often challenges us to be fully present, living in joy and freedom in our own lives. Perhaps your children are struggling in their schools, or perhaps you're just starting out on your parenting or teaching journeys, looking for ideas and strategies and support. You don't need to do anything. Just be aware of the challenges that you are facing. And I want to take a moment now to really honor your willingness to look at these places that are asking for more attention from you right now. And take a moment now to see what are the questions arising in your own heart. Why are you here? You've decided to join this very special summit for a reason. What is it that you want to know more about? You are here for a reason. You can trust that. And maybe this way of exploring the world from the inside out is new. Or maybe you're very familiar and comfortable with looking at the world through inner eyes. I'd like you to imagine now, or feel or think about, a beautiful circle of light that is surrounding all of us at this time. We are listening and feeling together in this timeless moment. It is a true meeting place, beyond what is right or wrong, or what might make sense or is understood. There is nowhere to go. Just breathe and allow yourself to feel more deeply into this supportive, nourishing container that we will be holding collectively and individually, knowing that this is a space for you to replenish, to come off the treadmill of life and work and responsibilities. It is space for you that you can come back to at any time. I really want to honor your commitment and choice to be here now. I am so grateful that you have come. You have decided to be part of something new, something different, a new way of connecting in an increasingly disconnected world. Because you know you can always go deeper beneath the surface as you mine for gold. Over the course of the next 7 days, however much or little you choose to engage with the material, there will be many opportunities to have your own realizations and understandings, retrieving those golden nuggets and insights that are waiting for you to receive. Awarenesses that you will be able to bring into your ordinary everyday lives and help support you and your children. In a few moments, we're going to bring this guided meditation to a close, being aware of all that has taken place within us and around us and through us, all the seen and unseen forces that are supporting and guiding us at this time, protecting us, keeping us safe, bringing us into deeper alignment with our hopes and dreams and wishes for our children, coming into deeper resonance and harmony with each other, that we may be the village for one another and for our children. And before you bring your attention into this present moment again, fully and completely, I want to share a meditative verse that was given by Rudolf Steiner to teachers working with children. For those of you who are parents, you are your child's first teacher, a gentle guide in a changing world. They have chosen you to be the most perfect guide for their journey here on earth. The Steiner verse is as follows. We wish to form our thoughts in such a way that we may be conscious that behind each one of us stands his angel, gently laying his hands on the head of each. This angel gives you the strength which you need. Above your heads there sweep the circling archangels. They carry from one to the other what each has to give to the other. They unite your souls. Thereby you are given the courage of which you stand in need. Out of this courage the archangels form a chalice. The light of wisdom is given to us by the exalted beings of the archai, who are not limited to the circling movements, but who, coming forth from primal beginnings, manifest themselves and disappear into primal distances. They reveal themselves only in the form of a drop of light, enlightening our times, bestowed by the ruling spirit of our age. So I just invite you to come back into this present moment and this space. So we've come to the end of our time together. If anybody has anything they'd like to share, you're welcome to share in the chat. So, thank you. So, thank you so much for joining us today, and it's been wonderful to connect. So we have some messages. Beautiful, thank you. Very calming and grounding. Beautiful and amazing. You transcended through technology. Wonderful, bravo. Thank you for sharing that verse. Wonderful. It was a very moving meditation. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really full of gratitude to each and every one of you for showing up. I cannot even begin to express how much it means to me that you have decided to embark on this journey. And my deepest wish is that these interviews that we're sharing with you are really just a starting point, that they spark your own conversations and your own communities. And, you know, what you take into the world from them is obviously entirely down to you. If I can support or help you in any shape, size or form during the next 7 days, please do reach out. You all have my email by now. It's info@festivalofthechild.com. And of course, I will be in the Facebook group, Help Children Thrive, Festival of the Child, and in all the usual places. It's been wonderful connecting with you all. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the next moment we get to come together in this way. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Oh, I could actually unmute all and we could just say goodbye in sync. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.